now. And I'd like to just introduce Niamh. Niamh Gaskin is a school librarian who graduated from the Dublin Business School MSc in Library and Information Management in 2018, before starting a brand new library at Anglia International School, Dublin. Niamh has worked with both primary and secondary students in her role as a librarian. In this workshop, Niamh will give advice on how to organise and manage a school library for schools without a dedicated librarian, including how to manage checkouts and arrange your collection on the shelves. So thank you so much, Niamh, for joining us today. And without further ado, I will hand over to you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And it is really useful to know about your guys' background. And I kind of have prepared this at the idea that we're starting from scratch with a library. So I'll try and think about how to consider the fact that a lot of you guys have libraries, but you're just like trying to like revamp them and revive them. Yeah, so I used to, like, even back when I was in university, I used to work in an educational bookstore. And I feel like then I studied English in university. I feel like it's been books, books, books for me for a long time, and that it was always going to lead to the way of me being a school librarian. But anyway, I'll get started sharing my PowerPoint, which I will also send to Aoife to make sure that everyone can see the PowerPoint with the details afterwards. Can everyone see two little meerkats reading a meerkat book? Yeah, so managing a school library, again, from this perspective of like a school without dedicated librarians, which you guys all are. And fair play to you for on Thursday evening giving up your time to be here and listening. Like, obviously you guys are doing a lot of work, and to do teaching and all the library stuff on top of it is a lot. So fair play to you. So the aim of today is to organise your library that it's easy for students to find the books that they enjoy. And it's about making decisions now to make your life hopefully easier in the long run. So that everything in the library makes it like it's intuitive for students to be able to find things that they want to be able to find. So some of the questions that I think we should ask at the start, and like again, this is assuming that you're starting from scratch, but also from a revamp we might ask as well. So how can we make the library space work for us? And some people have already said that they do have a library space, which is amazing. Like some schools don't have a dedicated room or have to share that room with other like facilities. So in that case, you have to consider what kind of shelving you're able to get if it's in a corridor or if it's in a room that's being shared with somewhere else. So how can we make the library space that we've been given or that we've been allowed given for the books and the collection work for us? How are we going to divide the books into, sorry, I just realized my little your faces are covering my screen. How are we going to divide the books into sections? So which sections are we going to divide the books into on the shelves, again, so that it's the easiest for the students to be able to find books, and that it's like in an appealing and an intuitive manner. What library system are we going to use? And I think it was Tracy, I think you were talking about the library system you guys use in the school. So I'm going to talk to you guys about a few options for the library systems. And again, I coming from an environment where I was in a private school, and that's very well funded, that like when we set up our library, I feel like we was very, very lucky to have a lot of resources to be able to go for it. So I've tried to give options that like kind of go the breadth of like paid to totally to free, or to like very to not taking up that much of your budget. So a question, where are the returns going to go? And that's like the thing about organizing things so that we're not letting things slip through the cracks. And we're not always chasing off books to realize that they were actually in the library the whole time. What supplies do you need? And then where I have gotten some of those supplies, so like where you might be able to get some of those supplies. So we'll start with the library space. So is the space solely for the library? Yeah, that again will inform like how you do things. I'm going to talk about a little bit about in the next slide about how it's great if you can get library furniture that is on wheels. Be that if like shelves that are on wheels, or tables that are on wheels, or like chairs or benches that are on wheels, so that if it is a space that you have to use for other things like staff meetings or things like that, that everything actually can be like put away and then brought back out. And I also think that's very good for keeping the library, like a lot of people mentioned that the library has maybe got a bit like stagnant. And I think having a library that you can like move the furniture around and move things around is really nice as well. That like there's the sense of kind of coming in and being like, oh, this is a change, this is a difference. So if you're lucky enough that you can buy your furniture, for some people you said your library is already set up and we're like kind of revamping the collection, that's not going to work. But to think about the library furniture and how you can make it be very dynamic. How to make it inviting and cozy. So we were talking about that. We're saying that you wanted to have like lunchtime spaces, a space for people to go to read. And like there are a lot of students who really need like a safe and a quiet space to like have during like times like lunchtimes. I mean, it's always great to have things like beanbags in the library. It's nice to maybe have like, if you can choose anything to do with the space, like rugs or carpets on the ground, and all of these things, again, that they can be moved to the side and moved out of the way if it needs to be used for something else. But that can make it that it is just that kind of like nice place to go. And it's a little bit different from a classroom environment, because we want the library to be a place that's different for the classroom environment, that's like really welcoming, a bit less structured, and that people can have that kind of like quiet sit down and feel like it's a bit of an oasis. We have to ask ourselves, like, what furniture do we have and how we can make use of that? Do you have like classroom chairs? Is there ability to get bean bags or some other type of chairs? And then like what will suit the space that we have? So on the topic of like suiting the space, you might have to, depending on, again, if you're in a corridor or if you have like certain like space restrictions, you might be able to get wide shelves, or you might have to have like a number of narrow shelves. And that actually could inform one of our later questions when we talk about how are we going to divide the books into different sections. And because if you have a lot of narrow shelves, you might end up like saying, I'm going to have loads of smaller sections and like a shelf for the science fiction books and a shelf for the fantasy books. Whereas, or like you can have like a lot of small sections, whereas at the wider shelves, you might decide that instead of splitting the sections up into really small sections, you might just have a fiction and a non-fiction, a bay of shelves for fiction, a bay of shelves for non-fiction. As I said, the furniture on wheels, I think if you have the ability, if you have any budget for furniture and you can make the choice, a lot of people can't, or just the way that like the space can be like dynamic and things can be mixed up, and if you have to use the library for something else. Then you have also like the shelf height to consider. Obviously, if it's in a primary school versus in a secondary school, the primary school, you want to make sure that like the shelves are the right height for the students. And yeah, when we were talking about it being cozy and inviting, I think the library is a great place for students to feel like they have agency over the library, like with choosing like to decorate it. Or in my school, we had in North Anglia, we had one of the arts classes paint a mural in the wall, and it was like really beautiful, and there was like books in it, and but there was a lot of stuff that reflected the school in it. And even the students who don't often come to the library, when the students who were from that arts class, when they did come to the library, they were like, oh yeah, we did that. And they would be like reminding people like of the experience. And it just, I feel like they felt like, or even little siblings of theirs would be like, oh, my brother or my sister was involved in the painting of that. So anything that feels like students have had a choice in the library space or an impact on the library space can make a really big effect. Or like if they make posters in a class and you put them up to decorate in the library, or book review posters or something that can go up into the library, something that makes the library space feel like a little bit more their own. And then just from a safety point of view, you have to make sure that if you're getting new shelves and it's a brand new library space, that all the shelves are attached to the wall, especially if they're like tall shelves and they're top heavy, because that can be obviously a safety issue. So the organizing of the books, and we were talking about that, people were saying that the library space, maybe things haven't been that organized or have been a little bit all over the place. Again, you have to consider the library space, whether you're going to like decide to do big sections or like have smaller sections, like splitting them into genres. I would always say that organizing by the author's second name alphabetically in the fiction makes the most sense to me. And we can talk about nonfiction there in a little bit. I've been in schools before where they have like sections that are like arranged by age or by reading level. And I can see the appeal, but I think it's very limiting for students. And also, like we were talking about our English as a second language learners, and if they're always kind of being put to a section that's like for like young students, like their peers notice that and they notice that, and it's obviously you might have a different section for, like, if you're in a primary school, you might have a different section for like the picture books and the like first chapter books and then longer books. But I would try and steer clear of making it really obvious what age you think people should be reading the certain books at, because I think that can be a real blow to students' confidence if they're reading a book and it's very visible, like if there's the reading band stickers on it or something like that. Because I hear students all the time saying to each other, like, oh, you're reading that band, you know, I was reading that when I was in whatever year. So when you're organizing the books and put it out, I would try my best, even though it seems like it would be very, like for classroom libraries and things like that, it would work very well because you're guiding the students towards the books that are for their age and for appropriate for their reading, and you want to like see them progress in a certain way. But I think in the library, trying to like highlight what age you think books should be read at, I wouldn't do that. Because the last point is that the library should be a space for agency and choice. So it's like one of the times, hopefully, in their school life where they're able to go in and within reason choose to read about any topic that they want or any author that they want, and know that they have that choice rather than being handed a book and being like, this is for your level, you should read it. So that's the reason why I think that we should stick away from the arranging by age. So now, how to split the books into our sections. You've got two like main choices, like, and you could have a large fiction section like on the right hand side. And I think either way, you're going to want to make sure that the students know which genre the books are. Because when you think about when your class comes to visit the library, what happens to me is that all the time students are like, Miss, where are the murder mystery books? Miss, where are the fantasy books? Miss, where are the history books? So they like to kind of know, and you want to be able to go, either it's that shelf over there, the second shelf down on that bay, or you want to be able to see like what genres the books are when you look at them. So the history books are the books with the sticker on them that has like a little, I don't know, pillar to show that it's like an old building or something. So like to have an icon on it to show the different genres. The murder mystery books have a little magnifying glass sticker on them. So like I have an example there in my school library. We have like that is the stickers that we have on the side of the book, and the EN shows that it's in English because we have books in different languages. And I imagine that that might be related to maybe your school, Jason, because you were saying that, well, first off, you were saying people come from different schools, so maybe if you have different books in different languages to support those as well, you might have like you might want to label when they're different languages or put them in a different section. And then the second thing is the genre. So the little alien shows that it's a sci-fi book. And then the thing on the bottom is the first four letters of the author's surname. So that is when students are looking on the shelf, I can say it's in the sci-fi section and the author's name is Power. So look for the P's and then they can find that book, even if I don't have to walk over to the shelves with them. So you can either have the genres be split up. So like I have these two shelves for sci-fi, I have these two shelves for fantasy, I have these two shelves for graphic novels. Or you can have a larger fiction section, but within that section, I would have stickers on them to show which genres they are. And you don't have to have like buy these stickers with the little icons on them. I think they're very obvious to have, like it's very clear to see on them. But you could also maybe have just colored stickers. Be like all the fantasy books have a blue sticker on them. So if you're looking for fantasy books, go over to this section and look for ones with a blue sticker on them. All the murder mystery books have a red sticker on them. And as long as you have like a clear established system that students can go, it's much easier for them than if they're looking for a particular genre. And a lot of students really, are interested in like certain genres or certain types of books. And when they ask questions and then you go, oh, you just have to go and look through them and look at all the covers and try and figure out for yourself the genre, it can be very like disheartening and they can just give up really quickly. So that's how I'd recommend that we organise our fiction books, that we genreify them, put them into our genres, or make the genres really obvious. So how to organise the books in non-fiction. There's again kind of like, well, I think two main choices here. And you've got the Dewey Decimal System, and it's probably sacrilegious for me as a librarian to say I don't like the Dewey Decimal System. But the general gist of the Dewey Decimal System is that they have numbers on the side of them, and those numbers mean specific topics. So that means that if you organize books by those numbers, that all of the books that are about World War II in France should be together on the shelf, and then all of the books that are about volcanoes should be on the shelf together, and all you have to do is arrange them by number. But then you have to figure out the Dewey Decimal System classification for each of the books, and then print out that sticker and that number. I think that dividing the books into topics in nonfiction, it can be less work and a bit more like flexible. And then within that, arranging by surname. So I'm going to give you an example of some of the genres and in genres and nonfiction topics that I would split my books into in the library. So we'd have a general fiction section, an adventure section, a fantasy and sci-fi. You can have them together, you can have them separate. A comedy section, a historical fiction section, suspense, which can be like murder, mystery, and horror. An area for graphic novels and comics. And we were mentioning that, like, I think graphic novels and comics, I know people like sometimes turn their nose up at them, but they're amazing. Like, students love them, and it really gets students in the door. And like, I've had students who've come in to check out a manga series or a comic book series, and then straight away went to the Hunger Games. Like, it doesn't necessarily, having them can be a way of like enticing students in. And then there's some students who are only going to read comic books, but in an age with a load of distractions, if a student comes in and reads every single comic book that's in your school library, I would say that's still a win, that they're sitting down, reading, focusing on things. You still have to understand the plot and the narrative and how things work. So I'm a big graphic novel and comic book person, but I would think they should also be in their own separate section as a different format. Because again, students who are really enticed by those will just come in and want to see them. And then romance, I put that kind of separately because I don't know in a primary scenario if there's going to be as much to have its own section, or if it would be appropriate to have a romance section. A romance section with 50 Shades of Grey, we said earlier. And then in the nonfiction, this could be like in a primary school, I would have maybe a section with space, because that's something students are always really interested in, kind of maybe a broad science section. You could have Our World, which could be like science and geography if you want like a broader section. Famous people section, and other cultures and religion section, a section on like hobbies and like books about like how to like crochet or baking books or things like that. Or you could have like a geography and history section if you don't want to go for like a more broad Our World. So facilitating, we're talking, that seems to be a big thing, is like making sure that like students come in and they browse and they find things that they're interested in, and that it's an appealing experience for them. So for the primary, I found like a really big thing is that obviously the younger students, and like that having books in a way that they face out, and that the students can actually see the covers, because they're so like at that age like picture motivated and like enticed by the pictures and things like that. So I've put like a picture here of some of the kinds of things, but I've also had just clear plastic boxes before sitting on the shelves that the books were in, and you flick through them more like you'd flick through a box of records, rather than the books all being on their side and facing out. Especially also because thinner books, it's so hard to see the spine and get an idea or even see what the title is. So if you're like for the primary, I would always be recommending that for like younger books and picture books, that they would have like be like in boxes and you could flick through them that way. And that the shelves like work, as I said before, at the right height for like the age groups, that like the primary kids could be kneeling down and be having like things a lot more like lower to the ground. And then for the secondary, we were talking, people mentioned that they have like the prefects who are trained as the librarians. And that's why I think a great job for them is to like have shelves or a desk or an area that we frequently update with some books that like we recommend, or like for a theme that you have going on in school at certain times, like if it's like mental health, or there's something that's going on like a Pride Week or things like that, so that we have desks or shelves that you update with books that you'd recommend that are related to that topic. And I think that so student helpers that are interested in reading would love doing that. So like I just have a display picture from like a previous one where like in our school we had these like they have learner profile attributes. So these attributes that we say the students should like aim to be towards. And then like I put up a display with like books about those traits and like labeled them, and you could see what it was about. And again, yeah, I think also like it's the same thing with primary, that the books are facing out and that people can see the covers, means that like people who are easily disillusioned or easily give up have this like first encounter that they see these books, and they might be like more enticed to pick something up. And as we said with the browsing, to have the genres be apparent. Also, if you know that students are really interested in a certain type of book, like our graphic novels, like having dedicated sections to that, but also if you get Minecraft instruction manuals, because you're like, that is something that's going to actually entice our students to take a book out and to come to the library. You could have like a little dedicated section for that and make it like really apparent. Sorry. So the library management systems, these are ones I have. So I have most experience with Koha, which is a great system, and it's open source. So theoretically for free, but you would need to be very like IT savvy to be able to get it set up without paying for somebody to set it up. And also then if there's any issues, you might also need to like pay to get those issues sorted by someone who could fix them. So like in our school, we used Koha. We didn't have to pay for Koha, but we did pay every year for someone to like manage the system, so that if there was an issue, we could just contact them and be like, this is happening, can you fix it? So that's not going to work in every school unless you have people who are available for it, or you have an IT support who might be able to work with it. So then there's Aladdin, which I've talked to some people in different schools. So that is something that you can add on to the school management system, and so therefore it's really easy to just like directly input the student details into Aladdin to be able to check out to the students. Database, which I've looked up before and seems to be very user friendly and helpful to use. TinyCat is very cheap. You can have these little like monthly subscriptions for. It's like you can start off with a very small pay plan, but that depends on how many books you have in your library. And the same with the one at the bottom. Actually, I think I spelled, I'm missing an or there. It's Librarica. And that is free for up to 2,000 books. And then the next band is $140 a year to go up to a certain amount of books. I can't remember exactly. Hold on. I was going to show you guys. I'll see how much time I have at, when I finish, because I was going to show you guys how that last one works, and like how you can add a book into the system, how you can check a book out using it, and like maybe even how you can print the barcodes for the books on it. It's very easy to use, and I think it would be a good option for like schools with like a smaller library to start off with for sure. And what a library system should be able to do to make your lives easier is you should be able to import the book records in. So for example, I have the Falling in Love montage, and at the back you have the ISBN, which is the number under the barcode, and it always usually starts with N978, and you should be able to just type that number into a book system, and it should be able to import book records in from other libraries or other databases, and it should say, oh, that's the Falling in Love montage, and be able to like bring the details in with a picture, so that it's in the information is in, and that if students can look it up and they'll know which book it is. Should be able to keep track of individual items, which is different to like if I have the Falling in Love montage, I might have 5 copies of the Falling in Love montage. So there needs to be like a system where they each have their own barcode number, or they each have their own number in the system. So I know that that specific copy of the Falling in Love montage is checked out to Wendy or is checked out to Tracy. And so that means that every item needs to have a document number or a barcode number and a different one. It should be able to import student records. So you should be able to use like an Excel file or like download an Excel file from another source and be able to like import it so that you don't have to type in every single student's first name and last name to be able to have their details to know who's checked out what. And it should be able to check books in and out to students, and it should be able to generate reminder emails. So the ideal would be that you put the students' email addresses into the system, and that it should be able to, like, when they've gone over the detail, when they've gone over the borrow period, send them an email and be like, you need to bring your books back to the library. And then therefore, hopefully that cuts down on the chasing up that you'll have to do. Library returns. So I think you should figure out a place, like some libraries you'll see in public libraries that when they're closed, they still have like a drop box or somewhere that you can put your books through the slot and then it goes in. And they have the returns ready when they come back in or when the book libraries open again to sort out. So I think it's good to have a dedicated place in your library for the returns to go, because it avoids the books being placed back on the shelves without being checked back in, because we were mentioning that before, that one of the problems is that sometimes the books get, like, it doesn't work on the system or something happens or they don't get recorded back in, and then we're following up on books or thinking books are missing that are actually in the shelf and they've just been put back on the shelf by a kind-hearted volunteer, but someone who didn't understand that, like, we needed to figure out that the book was back in the library. So I've had before like a trolley like the one in the picture dedicated to the returns. And we're talking about like making the library space, like the trolley I had, we called it Charlie, the kids named it, and they even put like a little sign on it that was like Charlie the trolley, and like it was kind of like everyone knew you didn't take books off the trolley, you know, because it was like they needed to be returned back in and made sure that they were fine before, made sure that we knew that they were back in before they could take books and like check them out. So they needed to like ask before they took books off it, and not to just take books off it if I wasn't around, or if they knew that they didn't know, if they didn't know and it was on the trolley, they knew not to take it. And you could have just a box that's dedicated to returns that you could seal in some way or something, that like people can put books in, but they can't take the books out, so that you know that they're there, that they're returned, and that they're put back on the shelf properly, as opposed to just someone like wandering in and being like, I brought the book back, I'm going to put it back where I found it, not putting it back where they found it, putting it back where they think they found it, and then it going missing or getting like everything getting confused. So I would have a dedicated space for the library returns, especially if you don't have a dedicated librarian and you have to wait until the next time that there's a volunteer there to check everything back in. So recommended purchases. You're gonna want to get some bookends because it's gonna make the library space much neater. Because when students are taking books out, like a book, the books could fit perfectly in the shelf at the start of the year, and then if students are hopefully taking books out and checking them out, then they'll have to be moved, and then they could be falling down, falling off, and it's just so much more easy to like slide them over with the bookend to make sure everything's like nice and neat in its place. I would definitely recommend getting sticker labels. So as I was saying, and we can see this is like my general fiction in the library, and they all have those stickers on them that say like that they're in English, or and then the little two masks show that they're like a general fiction, and then the author's surnames, the first four letters of their surnames. You don't necessarily, we print those ourselves, but you can buy different genre labels to put on. You could instead, as I said, you could just get color labels. You could just get like little circle stickers in different colors and be like, okay, all the blues, it's going to be all the fantasies, all the reds, it's going to be all the murder mysteries, and set up a system like that that's easy to make the genres apparent. And we're talking about making our lives easier. If it's not apparent on the book what number it is in the series, like you know, sometimes the books are great. They have like 1, 2, 3, 4 on the side, and then sometimes you just do not know. So I would maybe get number stickers to either put on the front or the back of the series. And again, that's because like students are just going to be like, Miss, what number book is this? And then you have to look through the thing at the front to try and figure out what's going on every time. So again, that means that the students can be much more like independent when they're looking for books. If it's obvious, it's a long series, like Diary of a Wimpy Kid, so many books, not always apparent which book is which. Or Tom Gates or things like that, or for the older students like Percy Jackson and all those series. So having numbers labeled on the books, I think, makes your life much easier. And if you don't want to go like the whole route of like the 4 letters of the author's second name, but you're going alphabetically, you could just get stickers that have like the first letter, and at least it's like, okay, I know that it's in the fantasy in the H section. So you could just go for the first letter of their surname. And then, so instead of getting the image, you get color labels to tell the genre, or you could also have a color label to show if something is inappropriate for certain year groups. So you could say like, obviously books that 5th and 6th years are going to be reading in secondary school are going to be very different to maybe what the first years would be reading. So you could have like a system where if you know certain books have like sexual content or a lot of violence or things like that, then you could have like a little sticker on it, and then make it clear to the students, like if it has a red sticker or a purple sticker, it's not for below 5th year. So I think the sticker, like getting like sticker labels is a really important way of like organizing things and making things clear to the students. You're going to probably want to cover your books so that they're more long lasting, and you have the option of getting like the rolls, which I'm sure a lot of people have used before, and they're very like, they can be pernickety, but they're a cheaper option. You're going to get a lot of books covered with using the rolls. And then on the right hand side, these are some book covers that I've used before, and they're very strong and durable, and they're very easy to put on. So imagine that it is like a book cover in and of itself with clear plastic. And there's like a hard plastic for the back, a hard plastic for the front, and then there's a little bit of flexible plastic that goes over the spine. And you just peel off the backing paper, stick it onto the book, fold it over onto the top, and then like use a ruler or something to get all the air bubbles out. It's like super quick to do. And if you have like parent or student helpers, it's going to be very intuitive for them to use, rather than like having to teach them how to use the roll of covering, which some students will definitely struggle with. But that is a more expensive option. And I have gotten those before from a company called Elam, which is an Irish-based company in, I think, Wicklow or Wexford, I can't remember. And you get those in boxes of like 50 or 100. Yeah, those are 2 options for the book cover. The signage, you're going to want to like make it clear what sections are which if you have things separated into the different genres. And I've used Gresswell before to get these kind of signs. So like in the pictures, I have like a little demonstration. So like the top one is like if you were doing the Dewey Decimal System, so the 600s to the 699s are technology. But my ones are like the ones on the bottom where it just kind of says the section, and it sits on the shelf itself. And then if you need to like swap things around, you just can pull out the little piece of paper from the inside of it. Like it can be pulled out and then print another version if you've changed that shelf, like if you've moved things around and then like replace the paper. So Gresswell, that's what I've used before to get all those library signage. But I got most of them before Brexit, and now there might be some issues with that, with it being UK based. In terms of like having to pay custom charges. Then posters and decorations. You can find posters on Twinkle, like like library space posters, and some posters about like like with images from the different genres and like what to expect from different genres. So that might be more based towards like primary school, but there are nice, and then there'd be like nice posters for like World Book Day and Reading Week and things like that to promote certain things on Twinkle. The library furniture, if you have to buy some, you could obviously get yourselves from IKEA, and have those in my current school. And then the pictures in the PowerPoint are from my previous school, North Anglia, and we got our furniture from Gresswell and Demco. But again, this was like in a situation where we had a lot of resources and a budget to start up a brand new school library with the furniture. And you can see in the picture, like some of the benches like have wheels on them, and those tables have wheels on them, and so everything could be pushed out of the way and moved around if we were having something else happen in the library. And then I found an Irish website, Ease, which I haven't bought from, but they also have some library furniture options. And to buy the actual books, if you're getting books, I've bought frequently from International Education Supplies, and you can pay a little bit extra per book, and they will do all the covering for you. And if you want to decide to go down the Dewey Decimal processing, you can also pay a little bit extra for them to get all the Dewey Decimal numbers for the books and put the stickers on them before they cover them. So they would organize all that for you, and you wouldn't have to be figuring out all the stickers and all of that extra like processing if you decide to go the Dewey Decimal System route, or you're already using it and then you're just like buying more books for it. So to recap, you have to think about the library space and the library furniture that you have, and make sure that it works, and if possible that it can be dynamic. If you're starting from scratch or totally renewing, you want to decide on the genres and sections and assign books into those different genres and sections, which again, the student helpers are really good. If you're going to your collection, you go, okay, which section is it going to go into? Is it the general fiction? Is it historical fiction? Is it fantasy? You're going to want to label the books so that when students come in, they can find it easily. They can ask, we need to find this type of genre. You need to figure out, hopefully, you might put the labels on it for the numbers in the series. How they will be organized, again, that's Dewey Decimal versus like author's second name, if that's how you're organizing on the shelf. Then you want to catalog the books into your library system. You're going to want to cover the books so that hopefully they last longer. And some people now, they kind of just, there's some places that they just cover, or they buy, like, you can buy corner covers, and they just cover the corner of the books because they're the most likely things to get damaged, like in and out, that they get dog-eared. So that's also an option if you don't have the time or the volunteers there to like spend so much time covering the books. And then you put the books in the sections onto the shelves. I know Aoife was saying that somebody had been talking about how to create like the atmosphere of like reading for pleasure in the school. And I think definitely having like events throughout the year is an important one. Obviously, we would all celebrate World Book Day, but in my school as well, we would have a reading challenge. So like in November every year, we have a reading challenge where the students have to like read as many books as they can and write a short review about the book so that we can see hopefully that they like read the book themselves. And then the class that reads the most books in the month like has a party in the library one day. They get to skip a class and come to the library for an hour and have a party and do whatever like they want, board games or things like that. That's always kind of fun because people get like, a bit competitive. It's usually better with the younger year groups, like in the secondary, like first year, second year, third years. And then the older year groups are less bothered. But we also have like some individual prizes for the students who read the most during that month. And we also take into consideration books that they're like form teachers. So they're like homeroom teachers. I don't know if you call them form teachers. And what they read. So like there can be like an atmosphere of like we're all in it together, reading together. But also to do some things like this year I asked all the teachers and some of the students to send in pictures of their like library bookshelves or collections at home. And obviously that is also a thing because some people don't have that many books at home. But it was kind of like a nice thing that some people got into, and they liked showing off like what books they have and that they've arranged them really nice on the shelves. And there was some people who have really nice manga collections who were really excited to like send in pictures. And it's really nice when the staff do that as well. But I also asked the staff last year to send me a list of their like couple of their like favorite books, and to make sure that then I'm trying to make sure that they were in the library. And we made posters of them that were like Miss Gaskin's favorite books, like for my favorite books, and then like the picture of the 4 posters. And then I think that was really nice as well, because sometimes students like who have a really good relationship with a teacher might be more likely to ask them about the book that they enjoyed and like check it out themselves. So there's a few things that like make it show that like I like to be like we don't just tell you that you should read, like we also read, you know, and that it's everybody in the school. We have I've had a competition before that was like a get caught reading picture competition, where the students send a picture of them reading like in an unusual place or doing something like unusual. And we did that like the week after they had like a week off, for like a midterm. And then you have like students like taking a picture of themselves, reading, sitting in a tree and doing, you know, related things. Someone took a picture of themselves like at Old Trafford at at a Man United match, reading a book in the stands and things like that. So yeah, you can get a lot of, again, the younger students are kind of more likely to be involved with that. Then the older students, I think, to like feed into the responsibility element of like trying to get them involved, is like you could write book reviews for the younger students, and maybe you get like an older English class, like a 6th-year English class, to at some stage visit a 1st-year English class, or like get them together to like recommend books to the younger students, or like go around and buddy them up to try and find books. I do feel like the older students, like the more, yeah, that they're more likely to respond to being like a responsible role model for the younger students. And in the primary as well, you could do that with 5th and 6th year with like the younger classes as well, to get them kind of excited to be like, oh yeah, I love that book and I remember reading that, you know. So yeah, those are some of the things to try and create the atmosphere throughout the whole school of, you know, we are readers and we like to read. But also when we're talking about the agency and choice, the students being able to recommend books and then trying to, when possible, buy books that the students have like recommended, so that like the collection is something that they're interested in. And then I think students also really appreciate it when you, like if they're visiting the library or something, they see a book and they're like, oh my God, I recommended that, and now it's here. And again, they have that feeling of like, I have done something and had an impact on this space and on this collection. Oh yeah, and then students might need to be taught how to behave in the library, especially if it's a brand new thing to them. In primary, I would have done a thing with lollipop sticks as shelf markers. So they would all, like on the start of the year, get a lollipop stick and decorate it the way they want to, and then it would like go live in a pot. And then when they arrived with their class, they would take their lollipop stick out. Basically, if they were looking at a book, they would put the lollipop stick where the book had been. And then if they decided they didn't want to take the book, then they knew exactly where to put it back on the shelf. And it could like clean up on the, or cut back on the cleaning up and the figuring out where things go back. And like stop them just like putting it in a totally random shelf where it's not meant to be, and then people having to chase it up later. And then so for the primary, it would have been like there would have been a routine, and come in, put books on the returns, sit in a circle, the story times and recommendations, and then now it's your time to look for things. In the secondary, I wouldn't really do the sit in a circle, but I definitely, like anytime a secondary class comes in, I don't just go, oh, roam free. I would try and have like a little moment where we all gather around the display table shelf and have, or the display table, and have like, this is why these books are here, this is what the theme they're relating to, this is why they're being recommended, and if you want to look at them, have a look at them, and then it's calmly go see if there's anything else you'd like to read. Oh yeah, and then I don't know actually if I'm going over time. I haven't I can only see my PowerPoint, not how long this has been going on for. Give me a second to check my phone.
We have 5 minutes left, Niamh.
Oh God, okay, I was talking a lot. But yeah, so if you give me like a second to advocate, every school should have a school librarian. In my opinion, it's not the case at all. Because you guys as teachers have so much more to be doing, and you don't have the time, and you're giving up so much of your free time. But I just wanted to kind of highlight that like the GCSP library project has some really interesting like reading about the effect that school libraries can have on students, like their report more than a room for reading. And that also every so often there's like a movement from like the School Library Association or the related organizations that are trying to push for the government to give more funding for like staff and for libraries to get, and that if you're here, you're probably interested, and that you maybe could like consider following some groups that might be sharing like some of the letters that they send, and yes, keep hopefully spread the word that schools need more funding for libraries and hopefully dedicated library staff. But yeah, so every school should have a school library, and the dream would be that they would all have librarians as well, but it might be a big dream. So yes, thank you so much for listening. And if you guys have any specific questions, you can ask them now. But also, if you want, I can show you the library system, Librarica, I was going to show. I will stop sharing my screen.
Thanks, Niamh. Would anybody like to see the library system that Niamh is talking about?
Yeah, I'd love to see it if possible, if there was time or that. Thanks, Niamh.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just gonna check. Did anyone ask any questions? Because I didn't look at the chat at all. Okay,
There's nothing in the chat.
Cool. Okay. Yes, I'll show you.
And just if anybody does have any questions and they want to type them into the chat, please do, or unmute yourself and ask while Niamh is looking.
Okay. So now the taskbar is in my way at the top. Okay. Right. So this is. Oh, now I have to sign in again. Do I? Give me 1 second. I'm going to stop sharing and then I will sign in. Okay, can everyone see it again?
Yeah.
Yes, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So this is like the back end of the library system with Librarica, and the one that you can have 2,000 books in it for free and like unlimited amount of users for free. So it tells us the stats and the thing here. There's only one title here. I've just made a test version of it, one title and one member, and there's currently no checkouts. And it's nice. It's saying that I've used 0% of my 2,000 books, but even though I have one book, but anyway. So down below the smart ad, this is where you add books to your catalogue. So this is where I was saying that you should just be able to put in your ISBN number on the back of your book, and it should just import all the details. So if you click into your smart ad, then you should just be able to type in the ISBN number on the back of the details and then click autosave. And so that is what I've done with a book called The Library Lion, which you can see down here. Oh, not what I want to do. So it is like imported it with the details and the picture. And if you see here on the right hand side, we have the checkouts area. And I've put myself in as a user here, just like manually typed it in. But you can use a spreadsheet, a CSV file to import your users into Librarica as well. So you just click the checkout. I hope everyone can see when it's like the little pop-up as well.
Yeah.
And then type in my name as the only member, Niamh, and then the book. So this would be the time where if you have, I didn't even mention, like a barcode scanner is also something that you might want to use in the library, and that you might want to buy, what you can buy with Gresswell, one of the places that I was saying before. But this would be the point where you would scan it if you had a barcode scanner, and then it would just find it automatically. But as I don't have that right now, I'm just going to type in the name of the book, which is Library Lion, and then click submit. It's checked out now. I've checked it out to Niamh Gaskin, me. Oh, I think it's because I was trying to check it out again. And then when we go up here now, the checkouts are saying that we have one book checked out at the minute. And when we scroll down, it also has here checkouts, my name, and when it's due back in the library. And then to check in, just the same thing, type in the book name or the number that will be the barcode number to scan, and then submit, and it's checked back in. So that is how easy you would hope a library system should be. Also, here you can see this little like button for like OPAC. That's like the Open Public Access Catalog. So that's how users could search what you have in your library. So if teachers want to check what you have, if you want to teach the students to check what you have, it'll open something like this. and you search the catalogue. So we only have one book, so you click the type that's the book, and it's called the Library Line. So we're going to search the keyword library, and then that is where books related to what you just searched up would come for the students to be able to see what books you have in the library. And when you click Library Line, it also says that it's available because nobody has it checked out. And then the last thing would be that you can also, if you can see the little thing that I'm on the left-hand side, it's not, is it catalogs? No, it's circulation, isn't it? Circulations, you can go to barcode labels, and once you put in all your books, then you can click generate barcodes, and it'll create a barcode for each book, and then you can print them out and stick them on the back. And you can you buy like stickers that you can put into the printer. So that's what we do with our library system, that we generate the barcodes, and we just have these, like, you have to get the print settings perfectly so that the barcodes go on the stickers. But once you get that like set up, then we just print our barcodes off by ourselves and then stick them on to the books at the back, and then use a barcode scanner to do all that, like check in and check out that we just saw. So I think that students would definitely be able to use something like this, and it should be that your library system should be that intuitive for checking in and checking out.
Fantastic. Thanks, Niamh. So thanks
So was there
everybody for
any
joining
other
us. Does
questions?
anybody have any last few questions or anything to say before we finish up?
Thanks a million, Niamh. I just had a quick question on the barcodes. I suppose, you know, the way you mentioned that most of the books have that ISBN barcode on them anyways, I suppose.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to see what's the difference then in like the barcodes that you print to stick on them. Is there a way of being able to scan books in and out of your library using that ISBN barcode, or do you need a separate one?
So, like, I mean, you could theoretically give it the accession of the barcode number. Like, usually you can like edit the barcode number. So you could give it the barcode number, that's the ISBN. But the reason that usually they're given individual barcodes is that if there is like 10 copies of the Falling in Love montage, you need to be able to figure out exactly which copy which student has. So that's why they usually create like a specific barcode per book. But I mean, if you theoretically really wanted to do it that like it was a barcodes, then you could just add like, you could just print out barcodes for the books that you have multiple copies of, and then change the barcode to be the ISBN. But that's why most libraries instead print their own barcodes, because there's often books that you have multiple copies of, especially if the library also has your class sets, then you're going to need to print out individual barcodes for all of those.
That's perfect. Thanks. That's good to know. I'm just thinking of our own library. Like we'd have a couple of multiple sets, but we'd only have like the vast majority of the books would be single copies. So I'm just wondering, would it cut down on a lot of workload of printing like 1,000 barcodes, or if you only had to print a handful, if you could use the other ones? But I suppose, as you said, you're probably scanning them anyways to set them up on the system. So yeah.
Yeah, it's up to you. Like, usually, yeah, you can like, it can generate barcodes, or you can just say, I want to give it this barcode. So you could give it the barcode of the ISBN if you don't think that multiple copies are going to be an issue.
Thanks a million.
Yeah. Also, because when we were talking about importing, the only problem would be with importing is that a lot of these databases are like not Irish. So if anyone has like an Irish language collection, it's probably not going to be able to find those books. In which case, there was another button for manual add, and you just type in author, title, and all that kind of stuff.
And can I ask you, actually just came into my head then about like library cards? Do you have a system where like each child has a library card that they arrive with and scan in, or is there any? I know some schools use that.
Yeah, we started off with that, and then we actually just like, I mean, you could have the library cards in a folder in the library, and that they'd take them out. But we actually were just like, students were losing them all the time. And like for most of the systems, you can just look up their name, and it's like the work of 2 seconds more. So we just scrapped it, and we were just like, look up their name and find them that way. But also just like, I was like, seems like a waste of plastic to me.
Can I just say that we used cards for a while as well, but they were just lost continually. So when you go to type a name in, usually just the first 3 letters will bring you close enough to a list. And it's very quick. It's almost quicker and easier to type those 3 or 4 letters in and get the name than it is for them to hook and try and find their cards.
Yeah, that's what I find too.
Sorry, I just have a question there as well. So we use the Koha system, and it's fine, you know, it's fine. It's not exactly user friendly, but I've gotten used to it over the years, so I'm used to it now. But my problem is that we have a lot of international students at the moment. We have kind of a changing student body every day, new students arriving, and then we're encouraging them obviously to use the library, and then when they come up, their names are not on the system, and then I'm trying to take note of their names and things like that. So is there a way, normally we have to contact Interleaf or Koha or whatever the company is, to get them to add the new students, but like it's happening every day and then they don't always do it immediately, and
yeah.
So is there a way for us to add new students to it that you're aware of without it being such a hassle?
Yeah, because I used to use Koha and Interleaf also used to, but I entered all the students' details in myself, and like we would try and like at the start of the year I would import them with like an Excel that I would take from our student management database.
Yeah.
But then like with the students who joined us, and again we had that in international school, students would join all the time, just manually add them. There should be a thing in borrowers and like add new borrower, and then just type in all of the student details, and then it happened instantaneously. And that's the same with every system.
Okay, I think it's just the problem in that we don't have a librarian, so it's me trying to do that at lunchtime while there's a queue of 10 kids behind them waiting to borrow a book or whatever. You know, I'm just wondering, was there a quicker way? That was all. But no, okay. So but it can be done manually without me having to contact them then, obviously. Yeah. Okay, perfect. I'll look into it. So okay.
Yeah, maybe it would be like, do you let your students also use like the student prefects in your school also use maybe they do, yeah. Again, they're just timetabled for a lunchtime period, so it's a different group each day, but but I was going to say maybe someone's job could be like
maybe just leave one of them off to do that. It's one computer as well, so they're all standing around one computer trying to do everything. But okay, thanks.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, I think that's all our questions, unless anybody else has one last minute question to ask. Thanks a million, Niamh. That was amazing. It's always really, really informative, and really good to hear, and even just remind yourselves of some of the things that make a lot of sense, but sometimes you don't think about it when you're surrounded by kids battling to get books out, and you're trying to get everything organized and onto shelves, and then you might not even have shelves, and then you might not have teachers to actually. So it's brilliant. So and just thanks to Jason, Wendy, Tracy, and Sarah for joining us today as well. So thank you, and have lovely evenings, everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Take care.
Thank you so much. It was very good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
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 Bye now.
So I will send you the PowerPoint.